Hello, sister, and welcome to the Art of Spiritual Living online retreat. My name is Elizabeth Foley, and I am an artist and a creative catalyst. I help women overcome their creative blocks and get in touch with their inner creative spirit. We are joined today by Jane Monica Jones. She is a financial therapist and a holistic psychotherapist, and she is going to be helping us get in touch with our relationship with money and talking about how we can heal that relationship and be aware of what that relationship is. And so before we dive in, as usual, I would like to guide us in a little breath practice so we can all just be really present here together. So I am going to invite you right now to just close your eyes with me and just bring your attention to your breath. Just noticing your breath as it's passing in and out of your body. Feeling your breath as it's passing in and out of your nostrils. And now noticing anything that's come before this moment, anything that's pulling on your energy and keeping you from being fully present. Let's take a deep breath in together. And as we exhale, just let that go. Now noticing anything that's coming in the future, anything you're nervous about or worried about. Let's take a deep breath in together. And as we exhale, let's just let that all go. Now let's take one last deep breath, just bringing ourselves fully into this moment, right here, right now. And if you'd like, you can keep your eyes closed for another moment as I share with you today's reading. This is called Stationary Set by a poet named Luna. When I feel the world is moving way too fast, when the stars disappear and reappear over the horizon in what feels like seconds, when the moon's gentle crescent curve consumes the black around it and expands in the span of a night, we're moving so fast, you and I, we're falling through space and time. The universe is expanded, and we're falling into the sun, flying through space at 1,000 miles an hour, with the sun hitting us at the speed of light. Life here is infinite, stretching out forever. So when I feel we're going too fast, I rummage in my accumulated possessions and pull out the most valuable piece. I set up my still forest of ticking trees and clockwork animals, plant the swaying grass within the everlasting soil. I'll sit in my unmoving meadow and watch the world stay still. And that is called Stationary Set by Luna. So I'm excited to be joined today by Jane Monica Jones. Jane specializes in money, relationships, grief, addictions, depression, anxiety, and trauma. She has degrees in holistic counseling and psychotherapy. She's a financial therapist, a trained Anapanasati meditation teacher, and is a certified Train the Trainer. She's the founder of the Billionaire Buddha, a personal development course that shifts our relationship with money to transform our life, as well as Shine and Enter the Flow intuition training. So today with Jane, we're going to be talking about money and exploring our relationship with money. Welcome, Jane.
Thank you, Elizabeth. It's so great to be here with you.
So before we kind of dive into money, I'd love to just know a little bit about what spirituality means to you.
Look, I think, being a meditation teacher, we, certainly go through the practice of being, in a field that is more than just our mind. So we start to quieten that mind and we get a sense of, where our place is in the world, of, being kind of extraordinary, but also quite ordinary as well. And I think there's a lovely kind of softness in knowing that that we are that sort of a wonderful blade of grass, really, that is just flowing in this big piece. So I feel like my spirituality is very human based. The humanity, I think, is quite, or the humanity in all of us is quite amazing and quite extraordinary. So to kind of the subtler parts, you know, the parts that kind of nudge us, as you know, particularly like intuition and things like that. So that is my spirituality. I think it's quite human yet quite divine in its humanness.
Yeah, I love that. So tell us, for those that don't know, and I know we're not going to be diving too deep into this today, but I would just love for you to tell us a little bit more about the kind of meditations that you do and what Anapana meditation is.
So, like the practice that you started us with, it's very much about the breath, and we focus on this area here, which is really bringing our concentration right down to the tip of our nose and focusing on the breath to quieten the mind. I have quite a big following on YouTube. I upload, and I believe that's where we met each other or discovered each other.
Yeah.
And it's I think, you know, life is so fast and so furious. We get so attached to and identified what's going on in our head that it's really important for all of us to really just find that place to calm down and center and find that kind of deep, deep guidance in a way. And so Anapana, it's very simple. It's just about the breath, you know, the thing that is our life force essentially, and to be able to be cherished in that moment with it is completely profound and really fills our heart, I feel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's a great description of Anapana. It's something that I've practiced before, but I couldn't teach it to somebody or really even maybe know how to talk about it very eloquently. So that was great. So I think the question that might be on a lot of people's mind is like, you know, there's this disconnect, right? It's like, this is spirituality. Why are we going to talk about money? So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about how those two things work together.
Great, but yeah, look, I mean, it does seem like it is kind of juxtaposition in our talking about spirituality. But as I said before, you know, my spirituality is very human based, and one of the elements that we have to deal with as human is money, like relationships, like, you know, relationship with the other, with the health, with our, you know, esteem and things like this. Money is definitely an element that exists in our life. We had talked before our call about this idea of spiritual bypassing. I don't know if you're going to ask me that a little bit later, but I think it's kind of right on this point. So spiritual bypassing is when we feel like we cannot connect or we cannot deal with pain in our life. We sometimes move into a place of being spiritual. Oh, I just want to connect with the divine. I just want to feel that kind of, you know, maybe godliness really touching me. This need to go into sort of a spiritual bypassing in a psychological sense is that we can't, or we don't have the resources to deal with pain. So we go into this longing to actually connect with the divine rather than dealing with what is here now. What meditation teaches us is that how to be present with whatever is. Money is one of those things that is here for us, for all of us. We have an economic system that is, far from removed than being cared for in a tribe. I mean, even in a tribe, we're still having to give our contribution. But money is the element in our field, and it's in everybody's field. We have such a strong history, so complex history with money that really affects our sense of being connected with the divine. When we are so wrapped up in our story around money, we feel like we're not connected with anything greater. It becomes a piece that cuts us off. And for me, it's such a great thing if we can really come into and understand our unique relationship. Then we can start dropping all the things that keep us away from you know, the greater part of what life is. So I use my practice of looking at money as being a way of entering awareness. How do we gain more awareness of our own, you know, soulful journey?
Yeah, that's great. You know, one thing I feel like I've been hearing from a lot of people as I'm on this journey of creating this retreat is that, you know, spirituality isn't this thing that's like just when we sit on our meditation pillow, you know, or just when we go to our yoga mat. the idea of living a spiritual life is really like integrating our spirituality into our life. So I feel like that goes right along with this idea about money. It's like, how can we come to our relationship with money from that place and bring it to a place of spirituality rather than thinking that it's some bad and evil thing, you know, like a lot of us have maybe thought that it has been for us.
Yeah, look, I mean, and those thoughts come from our conditioning, the pieces that we learned as children, the environment that we were placed in, any trauma that we experienced around money is going to kind of shade our worldview around money. But you're right. For me, the spiritual journey sits in the heart, and everything in the heart is, has so many layers to it, and it can have, painfulness. And so you can have pain about money, or you can have hate about money, or you can have joy about money. I believe that the divine kind of sits in our heart, and of course, every territory is also going to be sitting in there. And so there is no separation. The journey that we take in life it's not separate. I often think that when I go off and do a retreat, that I come back, I've got retreat life and my life, that I start to see that's the more that I work or that I do on myself, that actually this life is my path. This is my noble path. This is my divine path. There is no retreat self, and there's no life self. Every part of the journey is my spiritual path, and money is very much one of the elements of that, just like relationships, just like health, just like where we feel either, abandoned by the universe or completely supported by the universe. It's all in the same field. There is no separation.
Yeah, I love that idea of how we feel either abandoned or supported by the universe. That's great. So what do you find are the things that, I know especially there's a lot of artists that are joining us for this retreat, and there's a lot of artists that are in this like starving artist kind of mentality. What do you find when you talk to people are like the big blocks around money?
Oh, there's so many. That's the first thing. And it's complex more than just, I want a little bit more. That is usually our go-to sign is, statement, I just want a little bit more. But really, money is linked up with so many things like self-worth and self-value and feeling like how we can either impinge on the world or not impinge on the world. It's linked to power, but it's also linked to powerlessness as well, linked to self-esteem. And these are the things when in my practice with clients is that we're trying to work out what is the biggest story that is ruling you around money. When you're talking about artists, that archetype in a way, that poor suffering artist becomes almost it becomes the source of pain, but it also becomes part of the identity as well, that somehow I'm not seen or appreciated about how great my art is. And we need to somehow separate how far do we identify ourselves with this identity of being, say, a poor suffering artist, or, or, I mean, it's anything. I kind of give that idea of, I want to be an accountant, but, I want to be a lion tamer, but I'm an accountant, and how do we break that break on through in order that we can be supported in that way to live the way that we want, and particularly, be supported financially. So unpacking where we are so identified with our financial situation, whether I'm the poor suffering artist, whether I'm financially challenged, whether I am, even wealthy and I'm afraid that I'm going to lose everything, or I'm afraid that people only love me because of my money. We sometimes set up a structure or an identification about that tells us who we are in relationship with money, when we know, in fact, we are something far greater than that. We are far greater than our bank balance. We are far greater than our net worth. So if we can stop identifying with our, linking our net worth with our self-worth, we can actually really see the treasure that is us, the deep treasure that is us.
So what, and maybe I know you're going to be leading us in a little journaling process, so maybe I'm getting ahead of myself here, but how do we do that? How do we stop linking our net worth with our self-worth?
Okay. Yeah, it's difficult.
Mhm.
I think it's a journey of a whole lot of things. The first thing is when we look at meditation, and the reason why I suppose I did meditation and then I did psychotherapy, and now I'm looking at financial therapy. It's a continuum of a whole lot of work that I suppose we need to do it ourselves. If, and I hope, and I'm sure a lot of people that are joining us in this course do a certain amount of meditation and do a certain amount of mindfulness. What happens when we do a large amount of meditation is we start to see that there are two parts of ourselves, essentially. There is the crazy monkey mind that jumps around and says, oh, as I'm sitting here and meditating, I'm thinking about spaghetti I'm having for dinner, or I haven't picked up the kids, or, I've got to get those shoes repaired. And then there is this other part that is actually, I can see the part of me, the little monkey mind that's jumping around, and then there's this gap. And what I like to call that gap, or the way that we look back on ourselves of doing the monkey mind, is the identified self. The person that is identified with my net worth equals my self-worth. Yet when we meditate, often we can start getting that separation, and we can see actually there's this treasure that I said, there's this really divine human in there, and that's where compassion starts coming in for the human journey, and how difficult and challenging that can be. So doing the practice of meditation is so powerful. Then in a moment we'll do this inquiry about seeing, well, what are your stories around money? The more that we inquire about, what does my structure, what does my mind structure actually constantly tell me, and is that actually true? So when we say that in order for me to be, to be an artist, let's take that example. In order for me to be an artist, I have to suffer for my art. Well, I'd say let's unpack that. Is that actually true? Can there other examples in the world where people are doing their art and being supported financially, or that are not having to destroy themselves by, like completely destroy themselves for their art? Does that have to be true? How identified am I with this conditioning to do with, whether it's money or whether my passion or whatever like that? So it's about trying to get that separation between the kind of deep soulful part of you that is all knowing, and then what's the conditioned self. Am I making sense there?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think it can be really hard to kind of get away from that conditioned self, because even you gain a little perspective and then you go out in the world and there's like 5 more stories telling you that that's the truth.
Yeah, we have to become that kind of centered, peaceful warrior. You said the piece that you said in the beginning about being that unyielding meadow in the middle, or something, was something that said something like that, that we almost have to be that center ground, that kind of stillness within inside of the storm. That's the great kind of teaching of the Buddha, is that, be in this world but not of this world.
Right.
What that means is that, you are operating this world, but you've still got this deep, fine, delicate center that is all powerful, that keeps you, sort of otherworldliness.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Awesome. So tell us a little bit about the practice that you're going to lead for us to do today.
Okay, so it's right on the point about us talking about how we identify what our conditioning is kind of saying to us. So what I said before is that our conditioning, we're going deeper into what I was saying before. Our conditioning happens from our childhood. We get told, we get born into certain community groups in our family structure, and then later into schooling, and then into our society, that dictates what are the norms are. And in that, we get conditioned to believe really what is not us, what's not our kind of essential self. What I'm a great believer that the essential self is highly intuitive, highly compassionate, highly courageous, highly passionate, a whole lot of things, has a great sense of confidence. And through our conditioning and through our upbringing, we lose that. We lose that kind of sense of our essential self. So what I wanted to do around an exercise around money is to look at, let's see if we can start inquiring, what's my conditioning happen? So what we're going to do, I think, Elizabeth, is I'll do the exercise to explain it, and then we're going to pause it, and then we'll come back. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so, or we'll, get you to just pause the video. It'll only take about 2 or 3 minutes. We really want you to do an exercise where you're just doing a mind dump, that you're not really thinking about it. So I'll just get you to close your eyes, and we did that lovely exercise at the beginning of here. So let's just get back into that lovely sort of mindful space. Get out a piece of paper and a pen, and we're going to just allow ourselves to dump out onto the paper all the fears we have around money. So in a moment, I'll get you to pause the video for about 2 or 3 minutes, and then write down, what is it that you are most fearful about your relationship with money? Could it be that you have a lack of control when you don't have it, or you feel like when you've got a bit of money that you're going to blow it, or you feel that you don't know where money's going to come from? I want you to write down in a few seconds all the things, all your fears around money, and this will give you an inquiry about who you are with money. And start now. So hopefully you have a couple of key points in there that really kind of reflect what's going on with your inquiry around money. So I believe, Elizabeth, you had also done this exercise. Did you want to share with us some of the pieces that you discovered about yourself and money?
Yeah, what's really interesting is, as I went through this, there was first the fears about not having enough money. And then there was the fears about maybe what would happen if I have too much money. And so I guess for me, there's like this place where it's like, it's okay to have this certain amount of money, but anything more than that might be not good, and anything less than that might be not good, which is kind of a silly place to put yourself, really, when you think about it.
So when you think about that, or what are you feeling when you think about this duality of having money and not having, and having lots of money? What's going on in your body? What can you sense?
That's a great way to ask that. I think the not having enough is all about losing control, not being in control. There's not being able to provide for my family. There's this feeling of, it's just very unsettling to think about not having enough money. And then when I go the other direction and think, well, what if I have too much money? For me, it comes back to, and often lots of these things come back to this place, it comes back to feeling that people won't like me. Like if I have too much money, maybe my friends that don't have money we won't be able to relate to each other anymore. They won't like me or something, so it's coming back to that place of like, people won't like me.
Yeah. So you can see just in that very small exercise how you've attached this kind of conditioning around, money. And we, with further inquiry, we could look at where that actually came from. But it's already so loaded. So those are those pieces that are going to, well, if I get wealthy, people are not going to like me, so I'll stay where I am. Or if I don't have enough, then I'll, be stressed on my family, so I need to stay at the same position. So you're kind of stuck. You have a conditioned self that's going to make you stay exactly in the same spot. You're not going up and you're not going to go down. And it's amazing how just when we look at the inquiry to see, okay, so it makes me feel wobbly, or what did you say? It makes me feel a little afraid about, that I'm not so supporting, or that I'm not going to be loved, when you get more. So it's such a deep, deep subject, that deals with our kind of sense of who we are, and a sense of wanting to connect with others.
Yeah, I love the part of your inquiry about how does it make you feel. I'm not sure that I even kind of went there when I was doing the writing, but you asking that kind of really taps me into sort of that deeper level of what's going on there.
Yeah.
How does
Exactly.
it feel to be in that space of being afraid one way or the other with the money?
Yeah. So what else can you just share one more piece that you wrote down?
Yeah, let's see. Um, yeah, I think there's a piece about like losing touch with people in the world that don't have money. Like if I have too much, somehow that I'll be disconnected from, people that are important to me. Um, Honestly, that probably goes along with what if I have not enough money too? Because there's a piece about that I feel like I'll disappoint my parents if I don't have enough money. And that's kind of also sort of a disconnection feeling. Yeah.
Yeah. So just even talking about that, how do you feel? I saw you put your hand up on your chest just then.
Mm-hmm.
What
Yeah,
are you sensing?
that's really tapping into the like not good enough feelings, and I
Yeah.
know I'm not the only one right now that's having some not good enough feelings, because I know that comes up for all of us all the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, it kind of tunes me in there. And that's kind of the thing. I like, putting my hand on my heart is like reminding myself, like, you are good enough, but yeah.
Yeah. And it also means that part too, that it sits in that part of your heart as well. The pain sits very much in that part of your heart. Yes, you are good enough, but also that's where pain lives. And I think, when we do inquiry work, sometimes we talked about spiritual bypassing. Sometimes pain is so excruciating that we kind of go straight into um, saying everything's okay, it's all right. But actually acknowledging that pain is there too is a really great entry point for us to be compassionate about that wounded heart or that wounded self. We often, and I see it often in my counseling practice, when a person is going through a very deep sensitive piece, the first thing they'll do is apologize. Oh, sorry, I'm being negative. What we do in therapy is we want to see, yes, I want to be present to seeing how you suffer, like we all suffer, and we give a little bit of space. It's so challenging, and I totally understand that we go into self-soothing, but to be, it's almost this piece where there's a great nobility when we can honor the very broken part of ourselves, to do with money, to do with anything. And that, where we talk about spirituality, and spirituality I think we all really long for, is this sense of compassion for ourselves and others. How do we get there? When we can witness and be there for ourselves in a very, when we're in the broken bits, when we're in the ugly bits. We shine, absolutely. We shine. There's moments where we shine, but how are we when we're with our worst? And that is the symbol, and for me, that's the most noble part of spiritual peace, is how do we still be present with those that are suffering and those that are broken.
Yeah, I feel like I just have to breathe that in for a minute. Yeah, it's so true. Yeah, that's the real trick, huh? How can we have compassion for ourselves? Because until we can really do that, it's compassion for others isn't quite the same, I think.
Yeah. Look, I yesterday, I'm sort of working right on this point. I'm finishing my book at the moment called The Billionaire Buddha, and I'm looking at money and pain. And the reason reason a lot of the times that we want to kind of get financially stable, or we want to not have this issue, is because we don't know how to be with pain. It is no fault of our own. It's just that we didn't learn it. We didn't have parents that were really present with us because they were busy, they were trying to bring us up, they had their own emotional baggage from ancestors, their parents.
Yeah.
And pain was something that we didn't learn how to really be with. That's why people come off to counseling, because they want to be able to, learn how they can kind of be self-sufficient or self-reliant with the painful pieces. So a lot of what I deal with, particularly I'm looking at it in my book at the moment, The Billionaire Buddha, is we often go to, if I can be wealthy, I don't have to deal with pain. But pain is always going to be in our life. We know we're going to lose loved ones. We're going to have issues in our life. What is better is if we can learn how to be with our own pain. How can we be our own best friend when we're at our absolute worst? That is my goal. And so that we don't have to go to anything external. We don't have to go to, no one has to save us then. We can just save ourselves. Money doesn't have to save us. My partner doesn't have to save us. My plastic surgery doesn't have to save us. My cosmetics, my clothes, my shopping, all the stuff that we get so not locked into, I can save myself. That I am my best friend. And then that's it. We don't need anything else.
So what's your number one piece of advice for somebody who's out there who's struggling to be their own best friend? What would you say to that person?
I think get help is one of the pieces. Why I say that, not that we don't have great resources. It's just sometimes what I spoke to you before about our conditioning can sometimes be such a quagmire that we can't see any way through. So I think getting help is really important, and resource yourself. We're in a time at the moment where there's so much great resources, like the work that you're doing, Elizabeth, and putting together, great teachers from around the world there's so much resourcing out there. Another piece that you could start doing yourself is stop believing what's in here, Start really trying to connect with your heart. I mean, just the little piece that we did together now, Elizabeth, about really seeing what's in your heart rather than what's in our head. Our head is the sum total of the craziness that was put in us over so many influences, and it may not necessarily be the truth. What is the truth, though, is very much what is in our heart. And it is the thing that we long, that pulls us to say, okay, maybe I should just go and do this, or maybe I need to just go quiet, or maybe try and connect with our heart and try and find as many resources that can make that happen, and try and get out of this head. If I can extract everything out of people's head it may not be true. What's in here, what isn't true is here in the heart.
I love what you say about getting support and resources. I feel like for a lot of us, we've been taught to be very independent, and we want to be these strong women. And so somehow it's bad to get help or support. And it's so not true, we're not meant to walk through this world alone. We need support. So I think that's a really powerful piece too.
Yeah, look, it is. It's that thing that sometimes that the resources that we had that were laid down as children were like survival mechanism, but then they've kind of stuck us in a way that may not serve us as adults. So we need to kind of break and start breaking down that very kind of sticky and hard structure. A lot of us, we all had very underdeveloped nervous system as children. And we built all these strategies up to shut down, be good, be quiet, or opposite, be perfect, or rebel, or whatever. They were strategies that we used as children to survive in the environments that we had. When we become adults, we've still got these old strategies that may not serve us anymore. That, I can't trust anyone. I couldn't trust my parents, and now I can't trust the world. Or, my home life was very dangerous, so the world is dangerous. Or, we only have to, we've got to buy on absolutely nothing, so I've now got to get by on absolutely nothing. Or, my art or my passions are not important, so now I really struggle with allowing myself to have my passions and my, there is so much history that we have as children that stop us. And sometimes we can't see it, or sometimes we need someone to get that hammer and chisel to kind of break through and see that shiny, gorgeous, sparkly, essential person hidden very deeply underneath there. Yeah. So I completely encourage, get some help, get resources, find resources that work, and don't give up. That didn't work for me. Go on to someone else's. You didn't like their work. You didn't like my work. You didn't like someone else's. Don't let anyone tell you just because you're not finding it doesn't mean it's, you're not right. Find the stuff and the resources that's right for you. Definitely.
Well, speaking of resources, that's a great tie-in to, I would love for you to tell everybody about your free gift, because that's a great resource that you can all sign up for. It's right below the video here. So yeah, tell us what you have for us.
Yeah, so I've got 3 offerings out that I'm going to give everybody. I've got 2 gifts. So a guided meditation for mindfulness. It's an MP3 that you'll be able to download. So you go through the link down below this video and you'll be able to download that. I've also given you an extension on Inquiry. One of the key pieces that I look at with a lot of my clients is this one particular, if you get this piece, you will completely transform your relationship with money. Every single person has this element, this operating system or this conditioning. And if you can kind of absolutely nail it or absolutely identify it and get over it, you will transform your relationship with money. The other really, really exciting piece that I wanted to offer everybody on the call is we're doing a giveaway. So I'm giving away 3 Skype sessions with me for an hour. So if you sign up to get the free gifts, you'll go into the draw, and I'm giving away 3 sessions to 3 very lucky individuals to do a financial therapy session for an hour on Skype or WhatsApp or whatever way we can organize. And we can start really unpacking and working on your very rich history and with relationship with money. And I'd be really excited to work with whoever's going to be those lucky 3.
Awesome. That's such a great, generous gift. I encourage all of you to sign up, and I can't wait to hear who gets those sessions, and I'm sure it's going to be awesome and enlightening for them. And yeah, I also would love for you all to share what came up for you. What are your feelings around money? Where are you struggling with it? Let's share together and support each other over in the Facebook group. We're talking about getting support, and let's remember that we are all a community that can support each other as well. So thank you so much for being with us today, Jane. It's been a real pleasure talking with you, and just feel like it was a real treat to get to spend some time with you today. So thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Thank you. And yeah, look, I think let's just say it again, that support and the lovely structure that you've built for the Facebook group is, really share what I'd be really interested to see, what really touched you in our work today. And get courageous. It's a subject that we very, again, in my book, The Billionaire Buddha, I talk about shame around money. Try and get courageous. It's a conversation I think we as a planet really need to start discussing, because there is a lot of issues around, corruption and greed and sense of power and, and people being powerless around this piece. And I really want to kind of light some sort of, shine some light around, our relationship with money. I think it's if you can get courageous, I would really love if you could share, what you got. And yeah, Elizabeth, thank you so much for the work you're doing in the art of spiritual living, and thank you for having me. It's been an absolute joy this morning. I believe it's nighttime with you.
Yep, it is. Well, it's been a pleasure having you, and thank you to all of you for joining us, and just looking forward to seeing what you have to share, and looking forward to seeing you on the next session. All right, blessings all.